We've been using our Monday shows to do a look at kind of the generative AI space. And of course, one of the things that really ignited the whole generative AI revolution was Midjourney. And so we've gone back and looked at some of the features, what's happening with it. And Alex has been looking at it, and he's going to talk to us a little bit today about what he's discovered in terms of the newest updates and what he's discovered with Midjourney as a tool. Alex.
Yeah, and hopefully this is the beginning of a discussion. If people don't ask questions or don't make suggestions, then it will be really short show. This is not a prompt engineering hour. So that's a whole nother hour. We've talked about that in the past. You can find out a lot of things. What we wanted to do is give a little bit of an overlook or an overview of the web interface. So a lot of us when we got started, had been in the Discord interface, and that was great. There was something convenient about being able to open up Discord, but it was a little clunky, and the ability to kind of go through things and make lots of iterations was a little difficult. And the web interface has made it a lot easier, and some of us have had it for a long time. I can barely remember using the Discord interface. so like it's been a long time since I've gone back to that. I tried it the other day and I was like, oh, why, how did I think this was okay? What I wanted to do is show a little bit about what the web interface looks like. It's a big jump up. And now here's how I use Midjourney. I don't use it for generally final plates. So I don't use it for my productions. There's a lot of questions about copyright. There's a lot of questions about those types of things. So I tend not to use it for that kind of thing. But what I do use it for is I use it for brainstorming ideas. I do use it for creating keynote documents. And so if I want to have a cool image, instead of using stock photography or other things like that, I'd rather just do it inside of Midjourney and kind of think through something and put something together or do something that looks cool on the side or those types of things. And so I use it for that. And I will say that lately I've just used it for entertainment. Like I find that I can spend more time in Midjourney using the tools that I'm going to show you than I might spend watching TV. And it's just this explosion of kind of just, creatively thinking about things and being entertained by what comes out of it. So let me show you a little bit about the interface here. Let's pop this over. So this is a droid I made. So anyway, and one thing the thing to talk about with this droid is that, and here's another version, and you'll notice that this and this are the same prompt. So as is this one, two little friends hanging out. Now this one is not. This is something else I was playing with. But what happens is that what I've gotten into, and you'll want to look at this. This is how I kind of brainstorm here. You'll notice here that there's a chaos is 100 and stylized is 1,000. So what I've been doing here is playing with the idea of letting Midjourney kind of run with it. Run with the idea. So this is how the web interface works. And as you get in here now, there's a couple things that I would recommend. Is you'll see there's create. That's what I'm in right now, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there's also explore. Now explore is things that have been promoted, and there's a couple things. There's random, it's just randomly grabbing images. But there's also the hot things today. So these are the things that I believe that the Midjourney group has grabbed onto. That they seem to like here. There's also, the top things for the day. So you'll see things that people have created, in this realm here. And there's top for the week, so these are other ones that people might throw together. And you'll see a lot of really interesting designs, and a whale. And then what you can do is you can open this up, and you can see camera low angle, big whale jump from underground to air, sand desert, sand splash. So you get to see that there. It's very, very easy to grab somebody else's prompt. So if you see something that you like, you can grab onto it. So we might, as we scroll down, you look at something here. Let's see if we can find one that we like here. So let's grab this one here. So this is a hyper realistic picture of an old wood oak tree in the forest, smiling, and an amazing Pikachu. Is that right? Pichuda. But what I can do here is I can simply grab on. I can just. I guess I can. Yeah, there we go. I can copy the prompt, for instance, or the job ID directly, or the image, or these are, it's kind of the thing. So I can go in here and I can simply paste this into what I'm doing. And there's a couple other ways to do it. Now it's got some stuff that's going to control it. It's got this AR, that's the aspect ratio and what version it's using, but we can get rid of that. And now, once we have this here, what we can do is we can open up this interface. Now, this is the interface that's gotten a lot better. Now, what I'm doing here is I can choose my aspect ratio here, and this used to be the dash AR that we had before, but I can decide I can be 2.1. I can do 16 by 9, of course, but I can also, so we'll do 16 by 9 for now. Well, actually, I want to show you something, so we'll do something 2 by 3. Now, the mode is, now you can set it to raw. Raw is going to try to be more literal about what it's doing, or you can do standard. Standard is going to let it run a little bit more. You can still choose what version you want to use. So you can really go in and see what different versions do. Normally, I stay at 6.1, but 6.1 is diverged from, it's harder to get stylization out of it. So sometimes I'll drop back to 5.2. So you can decide. Personal means that you've liked up to 100 images, which I haven't gotten around to yet. And it'll start, you can add that personalization to it, and it will start to go towards what you like. Now, this is where things get pretty interesting here. So stylization is how much you're going to let Midjourney just play with the idea. And this is going away from the raw as well, but you can turn that stylization up, or you can turn it all the way down. Weirdness, so I will admit, I play with this and I never get a good result. So it's on 0 almost all the time. I go, oh, let's put it in weirdness, and I just get a bunch of random stuff. So I haven't found weirdness to be particularly useful. Variety, though, will give you, it's how much in the 4 panes is it going to build variety. Now, here's something that I've noticed doing this, turning this way up, is when you render something out, you're going to get 4 panes, and these are 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what I notice after doing a lot of these and watching what it's doing is that 1 tries to hit very close to what you asked for. 2 is a little bit crazy, like I'm going to vary it a little bit more. 3 is the most variance, and 4 is kind of going back towards 1. So there's this like hump that it does and it's something in that system that you'll see the most. Usually, you'll see the most variance in 2 and 3. Not always. Sometimes it does something crazy, but typically that's what it looks like. It kind of is. If you think about it as 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. That is kind of how it thinks about that as it puts that out. Now, if I turn that variety way up there, and then I turn the stylization way up, it's going to, I can take somebody else's, and it's not going to look anything like what they just did. So I grab onto that. Sorry. Now, I have it set to turbo, and that's because we're on the show. So it's going to give you instant gratification. When I'm entertaining myself, when I'm just like, I'm going to do I have this crazy idea. A lot of times I have it sitting over on a window. And what happens is you can stack up to about 12 or 13 requests, And so what I do is I stack them up. I just go back to what I'm doing. If I come back, I go, like I'm taking a little coffee break or something. I'll just go through and just make a bunch of requests and then go back to what I'm doing again. On that mode, I stay relaxed because otherwise I'm just using up a lot of time. The only reason I use turbo or fast, and I have to admit I don't use fast as much. I use mostly turbo or relaxed. For those of thinking about playing with Midjourney, the relaxed is free. So if you pay the base amount, so it's like $15 or whatever a month, I think. I don't know what the numbers are anymore. I pay per year, and so that saves you money. So I don't have a direct relationship to how much it costs. I think mine is like the 30-hour version, but you can get smaller ones. If you set it on relaxed all the time and only use the fast hours when you need them, you can make it private. So not everyone's seeing everything that you're producing. You can also you can run as many as you'd like inside the system for free. So anyway, there's a lot of you can do this a lot if you do it that way. If you get focused or you're doing it with somebody or whatever, which we're doing here, then you might do it at a higher rate. So these are the basic settings here that we have. So we'll go ahead and run this. So let's just hit return. And now you can see it's creating 3 or 4. Let's see here. So now it went crazy. A little dark. So this one's a pretty dark one. This guy's pretty dark. This one's very pretty. So what you can see, though, is that you can see that it varied a lot. Now, what I can do is to get started, if you're kind of brainstorming here, you can also just simply rerun it. Now, sometimes I'll even rerun it a couple times. So this is like, oh, I just want to see a bunch of different versions of what it could do. And each one of these will be different. So you can see that they're all kind of varying. I don't know why it's gotten so dark. Here's kind of a cool one here, but this looks like the Green Man. So here you have that. Now, what you can do here is, and again, this doesn't look anything like what they started with. The other thing to realize is that you can evolve from here. So you're not especially when you have the variance way up, what you get here may look completely different. So for instance, this guy mostly looked like this dude when I started. So to give you kind of a sense of that, so this is kind of that, but I've got a whole bunch of ideas here that I can work with. But if I take this one, for instance, and I go, oh, I really like this one, right? So I say very strong. Now this is another place where you say very strong or very subtle. If you like most of it, you just want to make fine adjustments. You can do very strong here, let's say. And then here we're going to get, different versions of that. So these are experimentations where if I do very subtle, you'll see it. And again, this is moving pretty fast because I have it on turbo. It's expensive. So do it for the show, but I don't do it at the end of. I do pay attention to the end of my subscription. So mine turns over on the 23rd, and on 23rd, if I see any hours left, I just turn it turbo and just use them up, because it's just fun. But here you can see how I used subtle. So subtle didn't change very much, but it is a little different. Each one is a little different from what it is now. One of the things that you have here, if you select this, you've got more tools. So in here, you have more tools here. So you can sit there and vary it. You can upscale it. You can remix it. And that means you can actually add, you can play with the pan. You can also pan it. So if I pan, so let's say I want to make it taller. I can click on that. And what it's going to do, we'll see here, is it's going to, it basically doubled it. You can see how it's soft at the top here, and then it's just going to fill in with multiple ideas. Now, sometimes especially when the high variance, it just added another head. Now, when you hit that, watch this. If we vary strong, a lot of times what it's going to do is it's going to say, hey, I have this in my head now, and if you do a very strong, oftentimes you'll end up with something that's a merge. You'll notice that it's now changed because it had some other seed in its head. That's there now. So you can see that this is now an amalgamation of these two. And notice how much taller it's gotten. When I give it a taller frame, it tends to fill it. So now if I go into here, and here's our guy. Now, I may want the rest of the body here, and I want it to be framed in a 16:9. So what I can do is I can go into the editor, and here's the editor here, and I say, I want this to be in a 16:9 frame. And I want him to be, I can scale it down. And I'm going to frame him over here, right? So we'll put that over there, and we'll just leave it at that, and we'll hit submit. So now what you're going to see here is, so now what it did is it basically did that rebuild, but it's just making up stuff. So this one looks pretty good here. So you have to be careful of letting it do too much at one time because it can make up a lot of things. So you can see very different experiences here, but I like this one here. So here's this one here that I think is kind of fun. It feels a little blurry, but what I might do is a very strong, and then I might do a very subtle, and just see where it goes with those two. Now there's also things that I might do. So for instance, so now you can see very strong kept that framing. It tends to want to keep going closer if you do these, so it tends to zoom in. But now you've seen that I've gone from, in a very few set of prompts, I have gone from a little droid to something that's obviously full-sized. And so what I can do here is, again, go into my editor, and I can say, well, I actually want to see what this would look like, smaller here, over here. Put it there. Now, there's other things that I can do there. So I'll submit that, but we'll go back to this guy here. Like, I don't want another droid. Like that's not what I asked for. So what I can do is I can just paint this droid out. So I don't want that in my frame. And then I can just hit submit. We'll close that. We'll go back up here and see what we got here. So here, see, lots of different options for our dude, right? So it kind of hallucinated here, cut off his legs for whatever reason. But we can say, oh, I want that one, right? Very strong. And here you can see the one that I just painted out, the little other robot is gone. So the other thing is what you're getting specifically is no longer, you're no longer limited to that. Now this one's gone more, so this one's decided it's more feminine now. So those are, and one of the things that I have found is that, the level of detail here is kind of crazy. I mean, it really has, a lot of detail in the circuitry. And what I notice is that detail gets better if you are doing these variants over and over and over again. The amount of detail in something will get deeper and deeper and deeper if you're running them over and over on themselves as opposed to the first version. So those are, anyway, that's a kind of an introduction. I think I've kind of shown, let me see if there's anything else I want to show here. I think those are the big things. So,
Courtney, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Alex, what kind of improvements did it make? Does it just give you more controls to use between 6.0 and 6.1, or did the quality of the image rendering get more accurate? Adherence to the prompt is a big means of competitiveness and how creative it gets. And if you use the sliders to adjust the amounts of craziness or its creativity, does it wander away from the description more and more?
It will.
Can you keep it fairly accurate?
Accurate is a big word for AI generation tools. So a lot of times it's a little bit of a trial and error thing. You see something, you feel like someone just typed that in and that was the prompt that they used. But as you can see, I use the same prompt and I have completely different droids, in this area. So a lot of it is that you type in a prompt and you can be pretty detailed about it. I think the mistake people make is they keep on working on the prompts sometimes, when what you want to do is theoretically let it play with it. I like this, I like this, I like this, and kind of move it through that pipeline. But adherence, I think, is complicated. There are things that you can't say no, like you can't say no hands or no this or no that. It's additive, so when you prompt something, you tell it everything you want in the frame. It's very hard to take things out of the frame or out of the calculation. So you really have to be specific about what you want, but you're describing something in the, of what you want to see. But if you tell it what you don't want to see, other things that it doesn't necessarily like are, really complex things, theoretical things. Now, sometimes you can put a bunch of that in and you'll get something interesting, but it may not be what you asked for. And now I a lot of times use styles a lot. And so that's the other thing, by the way, that I didn't show here. You can also do, let's see here. If I do a prompt, let's see. The other thing I didn't show here is if I say, let's say, Star Wars. I was playing with this. Star Wars Wires movie post. By the way, misspellings are really funny because it will create entirely different thing.
Has 6.1 gotten more accurate with text? Have you put it in quotes?
Oh yeah,
or
it
does. Mm-hmm.
Let's try that. Star Wars. And then what I can do is, if I want to make it all about me, it's all about me. Put myself in there. Now I can do two different things here. I can say I want to use this as the image prompt, which it'll analyze that and do an image prompt. I want to use this as a style reference, and I can put multiple ones in there. Or I want to use this as a character reference. So I'm going to put character reference in. So there it is. And I can put a bunch of photos of me or somebody else into that character reference. and say, okay, and then I haven't found, I'm still working on the style references, so like for instance, I really like Ivan Durrell, so I put a bunch of these in here and I'll say I want to make these the style. And again, this has not been something I've been as successful at. Now, in this case, what I probably want to do is open this up and I'm going to go to raw. I'm going to turn the stylization down to 100. I'll keep the variety pretty high. 2x3 looks good. Turbo, that all looks fine. And we'll go like this and we'll see what we get. And again, but you'll probably see something that looks like roughly like me. And then it'll have, so there's me. I feel this is the most geeky version. Like it's like, maybe this
the Alex Lindsay clone army.
Yeah, exactly. So there's
it looks like you've been tossed to space jail.
Look at this. I got a little Star Wars there.
Star Wars.
So this is sometimes you have to, especially when you give it an open-ended one. I mean, I'd have to give it more things, and I don't know really how it connects to Ivan Durrell. That's the part where the style hasn't worked as much in that area. But you can also I can say, well, rerun that and we'll see if I get something different. And so those are some things, but you can get something that if you want you or someone or you're doing something and you can do something where, these are all like not really.
Certainly taking a color palette from the examples you gave, but for the background.
Yeah, it didn't really do the
And it's taken the Star Wars logos.
Yeah, and it does that.
The text styling. Yeah.
But you can say Star Wars movie poster, and if I did like, let's try this in the style.
However, your spacesuit looks pretty cash.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand that. Now I'm going to turn this up a little bit, and let's see what we get here. And again, this is Turbo is very luxurious, but it doesn't. But it's not. So now I just went completely crazy. See, I turned up the thing, and now I just get Darth Vader. And so something that roughly looks like me. So
that one looks like Apocalypse Now takeoff with Star Wars ships in it.
This one here,
instead of helicopters. Yeah.
So, and then
an Apocalypse Now poster.
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't put the text in at all. See, but we could go back here and go text. Let's try this and see if I get it across all. And it's partially because I turned the style up. But you can also go through here and go, well, again, you can rerun. I can do very strong on this one because I kind of liked it. This one I might go in here and say, well, back out 2x. There's a starting to put the text in. Again, I've turned the stylization way up. So here you can kind of see that this is starting to get into in the style of Pixar. So it kind of has found that. But a lot of them, and this one gets pretty, and it plays with the text
intense. Here.
Yeah. So, and again, I find them to be relatively entertaining. This looks like Goonies does. Star Wars. Yeah, exactly.
I like the Yoda as Pee Wee Herman. That was pretty good.
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, and again, I think that this is the funny thing where you find yourself just being entertained by a lot of this stuff. And here's, so this is where I've gone, I've just backed up a little bit and it shows you those things there. So anyway, those are some things. And again, I have found it to be one of those things that is very entertaining. It's as entertaining as a lot of TV, a lot of things on YouTube. The 6-finger thing, you will see it still, but much less. 6 or 8 fingers. They've actually spent a lot of time getting better at hands.
Courtney, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it seems to, there's a lot of competition now between Flux One and Midjourney, and a lot of people are doing comparisons. And Flux One seems to have a lot higher adherence to the prompt. In other words, if you ask for 5 things to appear, show me a scene with someone, a man and a woman sitting at a table in a coffee shop labeled strange brew on a deserted street with, horses galloping in the background, it'll get all of those points. Whereas Midjourney tends to be a little more creative.
Yeah. I find that Flux One is more, you're totally accurate, that it is more, it's more accurate.
It adheres to the prompt.
It adheres to what you're asking for. Right. It's just not as pretty.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that, letting Midjourney, and again, I'm putting its variance way up. So it's, those are things that help it do those things.
And I guess I would say if you're going to use it for like creating a storyboard for a specific story that you have to fit the images into the story, that you want more adherence and less creativity.
I think that a lot of them are kind of going through this idea that eventually, I think we're going to be able to do this thing where you say, oh, I got a guy here, and like you do something and you say, and then you
just
give it a
stick
prompt
figure.
Yeah, and you can do a little of that in Photoshop right now, actually. And so, but I predict that Midjourney 7 will probably have that, because we're seeing that show up in a couple other places where you can do kind of a chicken scratch of what you want, and then say these are the character references, and it will start throwing those into those locations. And I think that's going to be really interesting. And again, I find that as a concept tool and a design, kind of a thought process tool, I think it's really interesting. I haven't gotten a lot of stuff out of it that I would. The problem really is with all of these right now, it's that last little 1% or 5% or 10%. It's very hard to get what you want. You can get things that are pretty, but it's very hard. It's like talking to someone that has had a little too much mushrooms, and they're still drawing, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, I can do this, but you're not sure if they really see reality because it doesn't, right? And so I think that's the challenge.
Let's dive into our questions. What's the first one?
First one's coming from Alex 4D Gulner in London, UK. Do you think services like Midjourney should have the option to report how clichéd a prompt is?
Probably. Again, I do spend a lot of time exploring. A lot of times I'm looking through the Explore tabs and really looking at, like what did they say to get, like you might look at this one here. This one doesn't make as much sense because it's like cartoon animation inspired by, like it grabbed onto some of it, but it didn't quite hit it on. But you especially things that are more like this one, I want to know what style they used. And this one was, now this person obviously has a style that they like. This is personalized here. And so they picked a style that they liked and said, well, do something, you can do anything you want in my style. So that's another way to kind of go down that path. But a lot of times, and the creativity, the level of creativity in a lot of these is pretty. Now, like this one here you can see someone went pretty deep into what they wanted, and then they also posted references of what they want it to look like, and they got a pretty good result there. But you don't know how many times they did it. But like this one, like, oh, I really like this. It's an ultra, Soviet transceiver. And then, but you can see like an old poster, patent design style, and a specific person in that style, and you get this really beautiful image of that. So those are these are the different things you can do. But I like to look through these to get, brainstorm about how those are. And sometimes, again, I grab the prompts and go, well, where would I go with that? With what I'm doing there. And it can be very entertaining. And again, if you pay the base amount per month, it can be private, and you can use Relax all day. So, and again, you can stack up the renders, so you can just go, and you come in every once in a while and see what you created, see what cooked out the other side.
Next question.
Lou Perez in Santan Valley is asking, what new features has Midjourney added that really impacts its usability and workflow?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is the editor feature. So being able to go in here. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find a good one here. Like being able to so being able to go in here and go to the editor feature and be able to go to, okay, I want to reframe it. Instead of doing this like 2x or 1x, I can just move it to where I want. Say maybe like this. I can say I don't want that, and I don't want that. And being able to kind of set that up and hit submit, that's a pretty, for me, a very powerful, and again, like this is like, well, they just put I'm just going to add Star Wars here. Usually it's pretty good. Like it adds it at the bottom if you tell it's a movie poster. But here you can see how it's done a couple things where, and again, I told you it would go crazy and then not crazy. And in this case, it's not that way. So that's what it's not totally accurate. It's still kind of an on average.
Yoda has stolen Kylo Ren's lightsaber.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely has a lot of reference to work with. But you can see how it changed the pockets there that I didn't like. I can also say I want to vary this strong and vary it subtle. Sometimes I'll do both of them just to see what it does. So like, for instance, by varying it, I go, oh, well, this is much more what I wanted, like kind of a lab. But I can go in here and say I want to go to the editor. I don't really want this thing in frame. I was a little messy about that, but we'll just do that. And so you can sit there. I find that the editing tool is pretty useful. And I think this was just a straight rerun. So you can get, a lot of stuff that you can adjust there. This was a high variance from what we had before. This is a small variance. So you can see how it just changes subtle things. Now you can see that it mostly got rid of the thing, but it keeps on wanting it'll add something back in, to that process. So, but the editing tool and I used the editing tool. I didn't know the editor was there until like a month ago. And then I was like, what is this? So.
Next question.
Ashua Bell in Antigua and Barbuda is asking, are the projects done on Discord lost when moving to the online interface?
Go ahead, Alex.
No, they're there. I think that you can go back and actually grab onto them and use them. So you'll see them in the older list. I don't have any anymore because I just don't use the Discord interface anymore. With this, I find it to be much more fluid as far as figuring things out.
Next question.
Rion Smith in Trinidad, West Indies. How would you use Midjourney to market or better market a live streaming business?
Alex, how would you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, when I want to show something, I might be showing. I might use this as I wouldn't use it in the show necessarily. Although I am thinking of using some of them that I've created. I think are a lot of fun, and I might use them for countdown clocks. Like make something that's really, the countdown clock that we're cutting away. So you may start to see some of these pop up in the countdown clocks that we're using in the morning as something kind of fun to play with. But I think that's one place that you can have fun with it, and you could, and again, you want to think about. I really moved from prompt engineering to evolution. Which is that I put in something that I want, and then I start looking at what I like that it's producing. I go, yes, 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 no, no, yes, 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 yes. And I evolve something that doesn't necessarily look like what I asked for, but is luscious and interesting and cool. And so that, I think, using that for some of the images, what I do use it for is when I'm for presentations, I will use these over, let's see if I can. Now, it won't work. I'm sure it will disagree with me here, so we'll see how this goes. But I might say I want a 50s style radio over. And sometimes one thing I have found is that if I go, I get really specific about this. I go plain white. What you put in first often matters more. So plain white background, and then I might want to say 20% padding. If you style radio, we'll just say glam lighting. We'll see what it does with that. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say I want to bring my stylization down. Variety kind of in the middle. We'll leave it at raw. We'll see what we create. And again, sometimes this oftentimes takes a little bit of time to get it to do what you want it to do. But we'll see here. So what you can see is that it kind of, a couple of these, worked pretty well. But I can also go, well, I want to vary that one strong. And I might want to go into this one and go, this is an area where I might go 2x to back up a little bit. But now you can start to see it kind of play with these, the look and feel of these. And again, I can take one of them and if I gave it more style references, it would do a better job at finding those. But you can see that I've created this. Now, what I'm going to do with this is now I can also go in here and say, okay, well, that isn't exactly what I want, but I can sit and I can go into the editor and say, get rid of this thing, right? I don't want any of that. And say submit, close. and it starts making up all kinds of stuff. Like it just keeps playing. But what you can do is now I have, it's arguing with me, as you can see, but you can get rid of it over time. Now, the other thing you can do is just select it in Photoshop. So this oftentimes becomes something that I do with Photoshop as well. So I take this and I'll send that out to Photoshop, and then I'll just select, get rid of the white. And then I have this little alpha channel. Or that's over pure white. I can just simply square it out and put it in my presentation. So that's how I use it pretty heavily. Is I want little examples of, this is what radio used to look like, or this is how we used to communicate with people. And I'll have a radio and an old TV and those kinds of things. And that is something that I can build very, very quickly. And, again, I might play with it for 10 or 15 minutes I just did it once there, but I might play with it 10 or 15 minutes. In 10 or 15 minutes on Turbo, I might generate 300 images and, grab the one that I want. And all of them are better than the stock photography I would have gotten before. I absolutely come out with it more from what I want.
Let's go to the next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, how will Midjourney survive the artist's lawsuit?
And there's a Verge link to that one from about, I guess, a month ago. Courtney?
Well, I was going to get Alex's opinion. I wanted to see Alex's opinion, but I think I've looked at this lawsuit and it's still in progress. So they haven't. I don't think they've come to a solution. And the judge has thrown out a bunch of stuff, but he's allowed a bunch of other stuff in. And the problem comes with the ability. There's two points of reference here: is what is the model trained on, and is it possible to produce a forced copyright infringement? In other words, give a descriptive enough description to pull out an image from its training data that is almost identical to that image, to generate an image almost identical to an image that was used in its training data. That's a forced copyright infringement. And that's very, very difficult to do, apparently. And they're arguing that is so rare that it shouldn't be included as a means of throwing out all access to all images. And a lot of these companies are contending that training should be free. If the images are available online to look at, they should be able to scrape them and use them as training data without paying a licensing fee or without suffering charges of copyright infringement for just using it as part of its training model. So there's two parts of that suit that are still up in the air and have not been decided yet, and they're interdependent. And so getting an answer out is problematic. But the question I have for Alex is, since this new Midjourney ability to take an image that you submit to use as a basis for expanding on or generating on. If you take a copyrighted image, let's say a Norman Rockwell character directly out of a Norman Rockwell photo, and you paste that in and said, I want this character and a bunch of other characters in this style seated around a table, will it produce a Norman Rockwell-esque painting? And does it have guardrails? Does Midjourney have guardrails that prevent you from using styles of living known artists, who could sue you? Or are there guardrails that prevent popular or known artist styles?
Alex?
Well, no, there's a lot there to unpack. For the original question, I think that in the current environment of what the federal courts look like right now, the hill is pretty high to prove that it's copyright infringement. I don't think that a lot of the judges all the way up to the top are very imaginative, and it takes some imagination to say that this is a copyright infringement, because all of us, anybody who's done this for a long time, we copy each other all the time. There was a shorthand on. Like Jill Greenberg was a photographer who had a very known look. Two big sources on either end. It creates hot keys on both ends with a slightly darker. And John McCain was on like the front of Time that way, and there was other things like that. And so she got known for that. But all of us just literally clients would say, "Hey, I want to do an interview and I want to do it in the Jill Greenberg style." and we knew exactly what that meant, and we lit the person up exactly like Jill Greenberg, And so to say that you're copying a style, I mean, I have whole walls. I used to have whole walls when I was doing ad design of all the things that I like. Like, these are just things I like to look at. Or if a client would do that, we would go through and we'd look at all the images of things. I'd say, send me things that you like. Just send me the things that you think are cool, things that when you see it, when you open up to that page, don't worry about it to your subject or not. Just when you open it up, you go, wow, that's cool. Just send me pictures of that. And clients will send me 10 or 15 pictures of that. And then from that, I'm now creating a look and feel for their show that feels like something because I know that if they go, oh, that's really cool, they're going to want to do more of it. But what we're doing is a lot of something very similar. If you put an image in, you'll notice that those images look kind of like me, but you could recognize, it's kind of like me, but it's not me. It's not a photo of me. If you put a set of Norman Rockwell images as references in, it's going to make something that kind of looks like it. And you can get things that look very much like the style of it. The one thing that I will say is that something I've noticed is that Midjourney is not nearly as effective as it used to be. And so I feel like they must be turning that down because I can do like the style of Ivan Durrell. I used to be able to build a painting that wasn't Ivan Durrell, but looked like it, looked like as if he had painted it. And doesn't seem to be possible now. And so,
Roger Dean, or one of the famous, stylized.
But a lot of times you can put the style guides in and stuff like that, and it's going to start to get kind of close. But again, we use that all the time. And the hard part they're going to get to separate it out is that as artists, we look at other people's work all the time and reference it to make the thing that we like to look at. We like something about that, and we do it all the time. And so, and people joke about it all the time. Steal like an artist. And we're always pulling things from each other. So unless you have a very, very specific look, I think you have a hard time with that. I think that I'm not doing things in the copyright realm. So I don't worry about it that much because mine are just entertaining, or they're imaginative or demonstrative, and I'm not trying to use them as a concept. I have some ideas around, like short films and things that I want to do, and so sometimes I'm making storyboards, or not really storyboards, but vision boards. Of like, here are some ideas, or here's something that gives you a sense of what that looks like. So I don't think that, again, it depends on how people use it. I think people are going to use it for copyright. I think that one of the things that's hard is that you may not be able to copyright what you made, because it's of the way it's generated. But I think that I don't think that a lot of people care, like that if that image is copyrighted. People in old media think that copyright is really important. People in new media, not so much. And especially if you're thinking about a corporate presentation or teachers, entertaining their kids, in class, these are all things, these are great uses for it that don't really care about whether it's copyrighted or not. And so I think that's the other part, is that there's an old school thought process that feels like this should be handled. And I just don't know if that's going to go anywhere.
Courtney, you wanted to follow up?
Well, yeah, the thing that's amazed me in the realm of lawsuits and AI has been that there's been successful lawsuits in the music world about one artist using, and this doesn't really have to do with AI, but just copyright infringement. One artist using a 4-note progression that some other artist used in another song, completely different song, but it has the same 4 notes in the same order, even though the timing of the notes may be different. And they'll be successful in their copyright infringement suit against the original composer of those 4 notes. And that's just 4 notes out of a 10-minute long song.
Which I have to admit that I think is absurd. Like, I just will say that I think it's absurd.
They've been successful in those things.
Yeah, I think that the issue,
Lord,
Yeah, I think that the issue is that the problem here is that it really is looking at not like a human, but similar in the sense that it just gathers all this information up and it just spits it out, and it doesn't know what it's writing. You can do lots of copyright infringement with Photoshop, but that doesn't mean that you should stop using Photoshop. So I think it's going to be a really, I will say that I think that there's probably somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion sitting on the sidelines waiting for these lawsuits to go through. If you think that AI has gone a long way now, wait until they lose that lawsuit. Like, like it's, and if they, I think that their chances are 50-50 at best. So it's a high risk because a lot of people stayed on the sidelines afraid of a lawsuit like this. The lawsuit's rolling through. If they lose, it's all over. Like it is going to be, the amount of money going into this, is going to, go up by a couple orders of magnitude.
The interesting thing to me is, having come out of a legal family, is that they just allowed discovery. So that's going to be interesting, how they can get into Stability's IP and what the judge allows them to look at in terms of deciding whether or not the algorithm does something.
They don't even know what it does. Like, that's the funny thing when you talk about researchers.
But with discovery, they can certainly dive and dive.
But I'm saying
dive.
the researchers don't know. Like the researchers are like, like it does the thing it does. We know how to get out of it what we're asking for. We don't know exactly how it does it.
I just wonder if that's going to expose the code to more people so that you get more competitors. It's going to be a huge deal. This is going to be part of our lives for a long time. Yeah,
I don't know if it will, only because there's so much out there already. I mean, so much of the how to do generative AI is not hard. It's really all the fine details and the scale and the reference. And Midjourney has a huge advantage because so many people are using it every day. And every time you use it, you're educating it.
The bigger companies have been licensing. And so that's going to put the smaller development houses into a pretty big competitive disadvantage. If these big giants throw huge amounts of money at it, they'll end up with a lot of protection and nobody else will. So it's going to be interesting to see how it develops. Let's go to our next question.
Next question is from Junaid Ahmed in Herndon, Virginia. What are some of the use cases of these AI image generative applications?
Alex, what do you think?
Well, I think we talked about it. I mean, entertainment is one of them. I mean, I just find it entertaining to do it. So it's not like I don't need it to have a reason. But what I will say is, I use it mostly for illustrations inside of Keynote. Like that's probably the most time I use it is for that. But you can use it for. I think that there's for brainstorming. For ideas, like some of the droids that I built. I mean, I showed you a couple of them. I probably built thousands of them, and they just, you can think of a whole story just looking at them. It's creating something that is interesting for you to think about. So I think that those are some of the things. I think eventually storyboarding, concept stuff, I think that we might get to a point where we're using them for final frames. But the real problem with final frames is that I worked on previs for Star Wars, and we're making fine adjustments where it's hard to figure out even what the director wants, and you're trying to get it just right, and it's down to pixels. And right now we don't see that kind of level of control. So I think that a lot of people who see a beautiful image and go, "Oh, artists are this is over, and we're not going to have animators anymore," aren't really thinking about that last 1% that makes the difference between a major feature film and something that's just like on Saturday morning.
Next. Courtney, you wanted to get on this.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think a lot of the stock photo companies are kind of embracing AI now rather than fighting them to make an AI engine for their stock photo library. Whereas it used to be, okay, you need a photo to illustrate your article on, workplace engineering or something, or human resources in the workplace. So you need a generic picture of a bunch of people in an office, and you would go through Shutterstock or any of the existing libraries, photo libraries, to try and find something that illustrates your specific article, let's say. And it may take a long time, but now I think the stock photo libraries, since the generators have gotten so good at generating realistic and believable humans and offices and that stuff, especially if they're trained on their library of those types of photos, they can generate non-real people in any situation doing exactly what you need to illustrate your article. And so I think the photo libraries are going to leverage their libraries of images to generate copyright-free photos for people that have very, very specific representations in the photos, whereas they may not have one photo in their library that has exactly what you need in it. They can generate that from the training that they achieve from their particular library of licensed images.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. What format do references have to be in?
Alex?
I use JPEG. It may do something. It may take other things, but the only thing I've ever punched into it is JPEG. It probably takes ping and a couple other things, but JPEG seems to work well.
There you go. Next question.
Fane Silver Adam in Los Angeles is asking, has Midjourney come up with a way to hold a generated character or object, i.e. the droid, as a constant so that you can use it later in a different scene?
The storyboarding question, Alex.
It does a little bit. What you can do is use that droid as a character reference. So you use that, you take what you rendered and use that as the character reference. It won't be exactly the same, but it can be similar. Now, you can also, reproduce the seed and grab the seed and do those things. There are a couple people that are pretty good at that, of creating those things. And I have to admit, I'm not as good at it because I just haven't done as much of it.
Next question.
This one is from me. Alex, can you ask Midjourney to generate a 1980s John Hughes-esque movie poster with you as the protagonist?
We'll see. We're going to do this live, so I have no
There you
idea
go.
how this is going to turn out. So oftentimes, again, you think that it's just a prompt, but it's not. Let's see here. So we'll go in here and we'll say my character reference is me, and we'll say movie poster. Yeah, movie poster. Sorry, I can't type very well and look up at the same time. Movie poster.
You got to think of a title like Pretty in Green or something.
A John.
But if it's in the style of John Hughes,
John
what if it's the
Hughes.
style of Breakfast Club versus the style of...
I know. So
Stand
John
By Me?
Hughes, for a John Hughes film, Alex's Day Off. And then we'll just try that. We'll just do that right now, and we'll say 2x3 style, a little low stylization, raw variety. Okay. Let's just see what this does. So this will be great.
Better
or
be some
just-
Chicago elements in that.
Usually, this is where you play with the prompt a little bit. There's a lot of crazy stuff. It's not doing a very good job, but this is kind of a funny one here. I don't know what's going on
Made
there.
you a tween there.
But you can do this where you go, rerun this a couple times. Just burn up those cycles. Me with long hair. That's great. I've never had hair quite that long. It's not doing a very good job of... Now, we can also do things like where we go, it just doesn't feel
Alex's
like a movie
Dax
poster.
Day Off.
Let's see. Official. Let's try official.
Maybe even giving it a specific movie title might actually help.
Well, I gave it to film
Give
with
it
the title.
Alex's Day Off in
With the
parentheses.
title.
Although it goes Alex's Day Off.
Let's try this. Let's see if this does any better. But then you can also do, like, we can go up here while it's working and go, hey, let's just turn the dial up and just see what we get if we just go crazy. All right. See that now that's starting to get into, doesn't look like me anymore, but it's starting to
Weekend at Alex's, like
yeah, this is kind of a weekend at Alex's. But a lot of times what you'll do is you'll kind of play with what these are. Now I went crazy here, and this one got a little dark. This one got a little spy. This one got a little bit, almost famous.
Almost famous,
Yeah.
The one on the
This
top
one-
left is pretty dead on, I think. Not you, but I mean, as far as a John Hughes look and the title.
Oh, and I forgot to put by the way, these ones didn't have the reference in them, right? So let's see here. Let's put this back in. And we have it turned way up, but we'll put my reference in. And we'll do it again. Let's see what happens. And if I put more, that's some of them are a little frightening.
You look a little
You as
bit
a
like
day, huh?
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go.
You and Matthew Broderick had a son.
See, but then I can go if I was Matthew Broderick, I would look just like this. But here you can start to see it. And then I can start to vary it. And again, it's not doing a very good job. Sometimes, oftentimes it will do it with all the little disclaimers at the bottom and everything else. I'm not sure exactly what we did here, but anyway. There you go. There's some fun.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas asks, what are the closest competitors to Midjourney?
Alex, what do you think are the leading contenders?
Gemini is probably a one that's pretty high. What was the one that you were talking about, Courtney? I just can't think of it. I'm on
Flux.1.
Yeah, the Flux.1. I think those are the big ones. Now the other thing is that I think I showed on another thing. I don't think I have it ready to go, but like you can also you can take the images that you generated out of Midjourney and you can push them into maybe I have it laying around here. You can take an image that you generated in Midjourney and then send it to Runway, and then have Runway do an animation of it, and then you can I'm just trying to see if I can find it fast enough here, and then you can have it. I'm not going to find it fast enough, but then you can have it actually animated, and then I took that into Topaz AI and upscaled it to 4K. I had like a fun astronaut that I was doing. I don't think I can get to it fast enough here. But yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah,
Sorry.
what Flux and a lot of the others, Flux is an open source one. So the advantage that it has is it doesn't have as heavy guardrails on it because it's open source. They don't limit you. You can have it do famous people. You can have it do now there's guardrails against using obscene material, that kind of stuff. But it doesn't prevent you from doing famous people, politicians. A lot of the AI generators now have really strict guardrails against, especially during political campaigns, against generating any images of political candidates or famous people. Whereas Midjourney and I think DALL-E 3 has very high guardrails against this. It'll just say, no, I can't do that. It won't even try. So I think Flux 1 has been used for evil purposes probably more because it is pretty much guardrail free, and it's fairly accurate as far as it does much better with text apparently than the DALL-E 3 or Midjourney.
And here's an example. This is what I was talking about, where I took a Midjourney rendering, I took it into Runway and did a video render, and then took it into Topaz. And so here's my astronaut walking through a rainy street, and it looks pretty good. Though something appears behind his lower foot that I would probably roto out or go fix or something like that. That's where Runway just kind of flipped out there. But it's kind of fun, and his feet aren't sliding, and there's a bunch of things about it. And I have no need for that image other than it looks cool. So those together, I don't think Runway generates as good a content as that. So
let's try to sneak in one more.
Next question is from Douglas Carmichael. When using Midjourney output for production, would there be any copyright pitfalls that can be avoided by careful prompting?
Not really.
Yeah, this stuff is copyright generic. So
no, we'll do these real quickly as a bullet. But yeah, you can't really copyright it, and right now we don't know whether you're going to get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
So
next question.
From Alex 40 Goldner in London, UK. Do you include clients in this process? Do you have any strategies to educate clients as to what changes can be made without the feel of a result changing too much?
Again, we don't use it for final stuff, so a lot of times it's reference. It's reference, or it's a demonstrative thing. We're not trying to use it for fine fidelity, so we haven't worried about that too much.
You ever had anybody push back on, hey, your reels don't look as good as those comps that Midjourney created?
Yeah, no, I definitely try to scale it down. I don't want to give people realistic things, realistic looking things, so that they get attached to it. Same thing as using your voiceover, or you do your own voiceover, and then you end up getting to do the voiceover because they get the soul in it.
Next, final question.
Tim O'Brien in Chicago just wanted to chime in and say we wrapped 24 episodes of a TV show that exclusively used Midjourney-created images as background plates on a virtual production. We developed a custom style and iterated on it to stay within our look.
That looks interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah,
Tim, ping us.
I will say, if you're brainstorming for sets, it's really good. Like, give me a YouTube set that's in a rustic kitchen or something like that, and it'll just, if you're trying to think again, if trying to think about those. I'd love to have Tim, if you want to come on ever and show us how you use those sets, we would love to have you.
Absolutely. That'd be fun to.
Yeah,
I'm fascinated with
I'd love to
people
see how it was used.
using these generative tools to do actual work that can turn into
love to
something.
have you on for a second hour to talk about that.
All right. As always, thank you to everybody involved in putting this show on every single day, to our producers, everybody who put questions in the queue today and guided the conversation. Thank you so much for being here, for thinking about these things, and for helping us create this show. To all the panelists who freely show up every single day here to add their expertise and answer questions from all comers, we appreciate your bravery and your skill and everything else. And to the amazing back-end crew, those people all over the world who are sitting at computers right this moment, making sure this comes to you wherever you are on the planet. We appreciate you very much as well. The clock traversal today, 64,000 miles. That's how far you would have had to travel to get these answers. 102,000 kilometers. That is 503 million bananas for scale. After Hours is always going. We'll see you here tomorrow.
Did they drop the price at all with Midjourney, or is it still insanely expensive?
Oh, I don't know if it's insanely expensive. It's $15. I think it's like $15 a month for the base one.
$8 a month. It says
$8 a month. Yeah, and with $8 a month, and I think is that with the yearly, or is that with the? Is that $100 a year?
I'd have to look again.
I'd have to look at it again.
Are there caps on that as far as the number of images?
Oh yeah. For fast, but not for relaxed. So the thing is, you pay the basic, the least expensive version of it, and now you can just simply. That's the cool thing, is that you pay the very basic version, and then you just set it to relaxed, and you run.
The most expensive plan is $94.
As long as you're willing to take your time, it's just So for $99 a year, you can run it as much as you want. You just can't run it very fast. And then if you're in a rush, but you get patient after.